Are your rates showing up higher than your competitors and you don't even realize it?
Today, we're uncovering an Airbnb setting that could be affecting your chances to get booked.
Hi, I'm Sarah Karakayan.
And I'm Annette Grant.
And together we are
Thanks for visiting.
We've been hosting for well over a decade, welcomed tens of thousands of guests, and earned thousands of 5-star reviews.
Our portfolio continues to bring in over $1.5 million year over year, and supported not only by the industry's leading brands, but also some of the biggest media outlets.
And we're here to help you with your furnished rental.
Today, we're revealing why the extra guest fee setting could be hurting you, not helping you.
A guest goes on to Airbnb and they start their search for a reservation. They're going to plug in how many guests are traveling with them, and they might enter in a price range, right? So if this guest is traveling and they are traveling with 4 people, all right, and you have a listing that can sleep 4 people, but you charge an extra guest fee per guest after 2 guests, when your listing shows up against other places that also can accommodate 4 people, you're going to be appearing more expensive because Airbnb automatically calculates that final price when this guest is searching. So for example, if your base rate is $150 for your place, and every guest after 2 guests, you're charging an extra $25. And so now that $150 for the flat rate plus the $50, 25 plus 25 for those 2 extra guests to equal 4, you're showing up at $200 a night, while your competitors, if they're priced appropriately for the market, are showing up around that $150 mark. So you are looking more expensive. And unless you're incredibly savvy about this setting and you look more expensive, you could be losing bookings because of it.
Here's why we encourage hosts to turn the setting off.
So, number 1, unless you only want to accommodate 1 to 2 people in your property, you could be sabotaging the ability to actually attract a party of guests that can comfortably stay in your space if you're charging this per guest fee.
These per guest fees can add up very quickly and therefore tank your conversion. And we all know that we want to increase our conversion as high as possible for not only our bottom line, but also for the health of the algorithm.
And when Annette says conversion, she means someone considering your place and then them actually booking a reservation. Okay, so if someone might actually like your picture of your property and they don't see the total fee of what it costs to stay there, but then they go ahead and click into it and see the whole fee and they don't book with you, that means you didn't convert. You didn't convert a looker into a booker. And that's also going to hurt the algorithm. It's going to tell Airbnb that something's wrong with your listing. This person was interested, or you're available, person was semi-interested, but then they decided, you know what, for some reason, this listing doesn't align with my expectations. And it's because you are charging for these extra guest fees, and people aren't going to pay more than they can get from another similar property of a similar value without the extra guest fees.
So here's what we suggest. We suggest if your home comfortably sleeps 4, price it for 4. Just got done coaching some people last week that they thought it would be advantageous of like, oh, I'll price it a little bit lower and then do it per guest, but it ended up adding up and then taking them out of the competition for their market. And they thought they were doing themselves a favor. They thought they were doing the guest a favor, and they weren't. So just price appropriately for your max capacity.
Stay tuned because we've got some other really fun ways to consider selling your property for different guest counts, but the per guest fees is not the way to do it in our opinion. You want to have pricing that is clean and is appropriate for the amount of people that you can accommodate in your home. So if you can sleep 4 people, like Annette said, price for 4. Even if a guest is just 1 person and they want to come stay and pay that rate, great, pay that rate. But when people are searching for a place to stay for 4 people, that pricing is going to be in line and competitive with the rest of your market.
And I'm going to just kind of have a mindset shift for you right now. Think about it. When you go to a hotel, there are many times that I will go to a hotel and I will get a room with 2 queen beds, and I'm charged exactly the same if it's 1 guest or 4 guests.
Yeah. So like we have a note here, like right now, Airbnb is weighing price and guest count heavily in search. Because yes, you can filter towards different amenities that a guest might want for their stay, but very least it's how many people are traveling with you and what price range do you want to be in. And so even if your guest count fee overinflates your price a little bit, it can really knock you out of being considered for that stay. And my goodness, how much money are you leaving on the table for the chance to make an extra $25 per person or $20 per person per night if you would just have marketed it and priced it appropriately. We mentioned a little while ago that the conversion, right? People who are interested in your place or they're served up your place and then they don't book, right? You lost that conversion. Let's say 100 people get served up your property, but only 2 people, 2 different booking parties book your place. And it could be because, they only needed 2 people to stay in it. We're going to use the same example of your home can sleep 4. This traveler only has 2 people, so they don't see your inflated price. They're fine with it, right? Because they want whatever. There's 2 bedrooms. They want each person in their party to have their own bedroom. But now you have a 2% conversion rate. We can share with you that a healthy conversion rate, what Airbnb wants to see, is anything between a 5% and 7% conversion rate. So when people who are shopping with 3 to 4 people in their party and you're overinflating your price a little bit because of these extra fees and they're not booking with you, you're tanking your conversion. And Airbnb, again, like I said, is seeing as something's wrong with your listing. So you could have killer photos, right? Amazing amenities, great description. You can listen to all the other things that we suggest you do to have a strong listing. But if your pricing's overinflated because you're adamant about these extra per guest fees, it could be doing the adverse thing of what you wanted to do in the first place.
And if you think about it from Airbnb's perspective, of course they are going to serve up more listings that have a higher conversion rate because those are guests that are actually booking. And that's what they want to happen. They want to secure the reservation so that way they can make their money. So it makes perfect sense. The people that are getting a higher conversion rate, they're going to serve up more.
We get it. We hear you. We've talked to so many hosts, and there are a lot of valid reasons why you would want to have this extra guest fee setting turned on and charge for those extra guests. So we are not just going to tell you not to do something and not guide you in the other direction. So we're going to tell you what you could do instead.
But does it sound like you, right? Like you feel like, well, more guests means higher utility fees. The cleaning is going to be so much more if I've got 4 guests versus 2. Or this really impacts the people with really large homes. If you're out there, you've got a large home, I get it, right? Like I had a home, it's not crazy large, but it could sleep 8 guests, right? And we're in downtown Columbus. And it's like, well, if I have 8 guests versus someone who could afford this nice big home with 4 guests, I mean, that cleaning is double the people, right? The utilities, more cleaning, more wear and tear, more beds to make. We all know how labor intensive bed making is. Like, we get it, but there is, in our opinion, a better solution. So here's our argument. Hear us out. We get why you want to charge a little bit more if more people are staying. There's a couple ways you can tackle this. You can price your property for the group count that you want to attract to stay at your property. And if you're seeing the market price, your home at full capacity at a certain rate, I mean, wouldn't you want to get the most rate for your property? I would. So just bake in the fact that if the max amount of people stay, the cleaning fee is going to cost X, the utilities are probably going to cost X. We like to call this your cost per reservation, right? Like how much does it actually cost to accommodate the max amount of people that can stay at your property? Now, here is another option, and we have a whole video on this, and so you can check it out. But if you want to market your property kind of like we did, where we had like I told you, that larger home that sleeps 8 people, and we're in downtown Columbus, so you can imagine finding 8 people who can stay in this home from Sunday
to Thursday,
right, from Sunday night to Thursday night. It's more challenging. And I knew that. I was like, and getting someone like 2 people traveling, it's a really nice home, larger home, just to have the extra space and pay what someone would pay for the whole home, I knew it was going to be even more challenging.
Stretch.
Not that it's not going to happen, but so what we did instead is the parent-child listing strategy.
And this is what's so awesome about this strategy and why we want you to do this as an alternative is you will actually have 2 separate listings. So you'll be able to show up for both what we talked about at the very beginning, what the guest is searching for.
Right.
You'll be able to come up and search for the appropriate guest count and then also within their appropriate budget. So let's say we're taking that 4-bedroom down to a 2-bedroom for 4 guests or 2 guests versus the 8. So the parent-child listing, this is the way to go over the reduction for lower guest count and then increase for higher guest count.
Because it not only affects the price of it, right, where the price is going to be lower, but also the cleaning fee can be lower, right? Because what you're going to do, and again, I don't want this video to get too out of hand with going into what the parent-child listing is. We have a whole video on that. Definitely go check it out. But with the cleaning fee being appropriately priced and the pricing being appropriately priced for that size of home, you're going to lock off access to different parts of the home. If someone books it, if like the 4 people book it instead of the 8 people book it, I locked off 2 bedrooms. It's worth it for them. they still get the value there because I priced it for what they do get. You now have a whole new product, is what I'm trying to say, right? So if you have this large home and you are blocking off a couple bedrooms, a couple bathrooms, now don't even consider it as the whole thing. Consider it what it is as a smaller property, right? With 2 bedrooms and 2 baths instead of 4 bedrooms and 4 baths, and reprice it. And so if you're using dynamic pricing, it'll be a whole other dynamic pricing listing. It'll be a whole other listing on Airbnb. And here's why it's okay to do the parent-child listing strategy is because you do have 2 different offers.
Right.
You are offering it as the entire home, and you're also offering it as a portion of the home. And so the value is aligned there.
And here's, for us, one of the biggest reasons not to do this is hospitality-wise and the way that it comes off to the guests, like they don't want to feel like they're getting nickel and dimed. And so it's like once they see the rate and then as they start adding guests and then the fees just keep adding up. And we know that guests, as they should be, are extremely fee sensitive. I don't know the last time that you've booked an Airbnb, but go on and do it for yourself because you do feel like there's the actual, booking. And then if you have the additional guest, maybe you're bringing a pet, then you might have a management fee, then you have taxes. And as the guest, we just want to make them feel like they're not getting charged for each and everything. So it's one of those opportunities for us that, again, that we just like to have our base rate all inclusive for the guest count.
And here's what happens too with hosts, and this might be you, okay? Because you might be sitting there and being like, I would never do that. And then you go back into your listing and you see that back when you got started, because again, like we're making this because it makes sense in terms of if you've got extra guests,
right,
to charge for like, oh, right, this fee, what I want to attract 2 guests in my 4-person home. So I'm going to price it for them. And then if 4 guests want to stay, they can just pay extra. But with Airbnb's fee transparency and then posting the entire, what checkout is going to look like, and you're going to just, again, overinflate people who aren't using this per guest fee, you are going to look more expensive. So go back and check is what I'm saying. Go and see if you set that setting back in the day, because we audit so many hosts because they're like, I'm not getting booked, something's going on. And we dig into their pricing and we see, oh my gosh.
It's turned on, they didn't even know.
Yeah.
And the last thing that I want to say about the fees and hosts too is like the hosts that do like knowingly have this turned on, we've chatted with them too, and they get so mad when they're like, they brought 6 guests and they told me they were only bringing 4 because they saw that additional guest fee and they quote unquote lied about how many guests. So like, we also just want to save you from that of having to like feel like you're policing the amount of guests that are in your home. It's like, if it sleeps that many, let them have that many, because we see that rub where hosts then have this friction of like, well, you didn't pay for the extra guest and now you have to, and that's just the hospitality wise, that puts everybody in a bad.
Because I don't know how many times I'll tell people I'm going on a trip. I don't know. I see a friend. I'm like, oh my God, you should totally come with us. And like, I don't think about telling my host. No malicious intent. There's enough beds. I'm not being unsafe, right? But then you're right. The host might reach out and say, well, you told us you were only having this many people. And it's like, just eliminate that whole thing. And it's just win-win for everyone.
So just to confirm, we do want you to go to your listing, double check, make sure you don't have the feature turned on. You might have had it accidentally turned on when you first got started. We're going to show you exactly how to do that so you can confirm.
Yeah, so it's actually not turning an offer on. It is adding a fee to it. If you're on Airbnb, and you're on the host side, instead of going to your listings, go to the calendar, pick your listing that you want to check. And then on the right-hand side, you'll see a little screen that'll kind of like fly out. At the bottom of that is an additional fee section. Click on that. And that is where you can adjust all your additional fees, including the extra guest count fee. And our advice is to keep that at 0. Go check your base rate. Make sure it's in line with your ideal guest count.
Absolutely.
But more importantly, your ideal guest count and what the market is saying the traveler is willing to pay for a listing like yours.
And if you are, maybe you had this guest count fee to deter larger parties or to make sure people stay in line or misuse of the property, just make sure you have very clear house rules. And you might want to have some sort of, we always encourage a noise monitor in the home too, so you can just keep track of how many people are there. Because we know sometimes that is also a way that people wanted to keep their guest count in line. But you can do this with your house rules and a noise monitor.
All right, so let's get some conversations going. Head on into the comments below. If you have the per guest fee, if you have an amount in there, let us know what that amount is, and I want to know what is your occupancy and your revenue as it compares to the market. And if you're not sure, you got to figure out how to get that information, because if you just have these arbitrary fees and you're not sure if you're losing money on the table, even if your occupancy is high, hear me, that could be an indicator that you are priced too low, even with your additional guest fees, okay? So we want your occupancy to be in line with the market and your revenue to be in line with the market. And if it's not, if you're below it, these guest fees could be hindering your listing from getting booked.
All right, so make sure you hit the subscribe button. And if you got excited about the parent-child listing, please go watch this video so you can learn all about it.
And with that, I am Sarah Karakayan.
I'm Annette Grant, and together we are...
Thanks for visiting.